Hello, I'm live. Not very well lit. Hold on, see if I can put a hold on this. Is that a held? No. Silly Billy. Say something. I'm a complete amateur, that's what I am. As you noticed. Almost broke my phone. I'm amazed this phone's lasted so long. Sorry about this. But this is what it's like. That's a lot better. Oh, for goodness sakes, yes. I was in Batman's world for a moment there. Huffing and puffing. Flowing your house down. Right. Whoa, what's it all about? It's been a while since I've been on. Don't particularly know why. I mean, the main thing in my life at the moment is a court case where I was accused of basically verbally abusing a transgender person, which is kind of bizarre because I never actually said anything to the transgender person, but it seems that this transgender person overheard me saying certain things and decided to take offence. And you think, fair enough, sticks and stones and all that stuff, the school kids and, Mummy, he's calling me this and Mummy, she's calling me that. Get on there, don't be silly, and, But here's an adult accusing me of verbally abusing them. I say, well, there's not a lot of mileage in that, is there? Well, you would be surprised. Not a lot of mileage. I got taken to court and found guilty. I'm not exactly sure the terminology for the charge, but it started off as a hate crime that soon disappeared. We can't get him on that. All right, so let's get him on something else. And a brief history of what happened. I'm a taxi driver in Hertford, North London, and I work part-time just to finance my car and so I can go to AA meetings and carry the good message. I know some of you would doubt the wisdom of that, but there you go. We each have our cross to bear. And so I don't know anybody within the taxi, whatever they call them, community, the trans community. I really don't care. I don't give a damn about it. Basically, anybody. I don't hold opinions as such. And I don't go about spouting about. I'm not outspoken, I'm not loud, I'm not aggressive. But anyway, I'm going down to the opticians. Yeah. Down to the opticians. Parking beside the opticians, which is next to the taxi rank. I saw a guy who I've known for years, and I wanted to to get genned up on some changes in the licensing rules and whatever, because they're bloody useless, they're hopeless, and they cause more trouble than anything else. I'll nip in. Oh, hell, there's Glenn. I'll go and have a word with Glenn. So I'm pulling into the rank, and Glenn comes running up, waving his hands as though it's a fire or something. But, you know, somebody's got a gun. And he's at the window and he's saying, oh, don't stop. The lady boy from the taxi office is checking the cars. The thing that registered with me is checking the cars. And says, so don't stop. So, right, okay, so I pulled away. I goes round in the parks and I goes back round and he's still there. So I said, right, I'll get down and have a word with him. So I have a word with him about this stuff. 5 minutes, you're lucky. And then I decided, I didn't understand, it didn't register with me what this ladyboy thing was. And it's not a term you hear that, well, it's not a term I hear that often, but then I don't watch the news, read the news, or listen to the news, so I can be forgiven. Or could I? So I had a chat, right, okay, thanks. Hey, by the way, what's this ladyboy thing? Oh, and Glenn, who's a bit of a drama queen, he did, no. And he'd been talking to this female before I turned up, and or what purported to be a female, before I showed up. And then this female faded away, and I was talking to Glenn. And then I said, well, what's this with this ladyboy? I said, what's that mean? And he started getting into it, and he's throwing a wobbly. So what's going on here? And then I noticed that the ladyboy, inverted commas, was taking more interest in what was being said. And I also noticed that the ladyboy, inverted commas, you couldn't make this up, could you? Had a 5 o'clock shadow. Then it started to dawn on me. Oops, wait a minute, something gone wrong here. And Glenn's panicking and he's not, he didn't mean to do that. I said, whoa. I don't need you to apologise for me. What are you talking about? And still nothing. He's still chopping a wobbly. I said, well, look, I'm sorry if somebody. Oh, he didn't mean to offend you. It's still not registering me. This is all happening within seconds, And I've still not got my head around it. I've got a head full of painkillers as well. Didn't help. A body full of painkillers. And that doesn't help. And I said, well, I'm sorry if somebody was offended. He's apologised. I said, no, I'm not apologising. I'm just sorry if somebody's offended. And then I thought to myself, that it became more and more clear this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. So I took my phone out and said, right, okay, let's video this. Let's go through this again. But no. The taxi, this was a taxi inspector officer who was there. And stormed off. 3 days later, cops were at my door, arrest me for a hate crime, an alleged hate crime. Got to the station, load of just absolute nonsense here. And the desk sergeant, the only sensible one there, he said, right, okay, fine. No, I don't suppose we'll see you again. If only. I get summons to appear at the local magistrate's court and tried for causing this person all sorts of distress and you couldn't make it up, you couldn't make it up. I hadn't actually said a direct word to this person. I think I said one sentence when they said coming down to my rank and upsetting things, in that hoity-toity and arrogant way. I said, actually, it's not your rank, it's the driver's rank, which I thought was reasonable. And that's all I said. And here's me getting arrested. Then I get taken to court and I get found guilty. You couldn't make it up. You really could not make it up. There was not a witness there. The guy Glenn, who was the main witness, he was the other part. He was the third party. He didn't show. There's one wee taxi driver who vaguely remembered this, and they still found me guilty. It boiled down to the licensing officer's opinion, my view, and her view, his view. I really can't get used to this, you know. Biologically, I'm talking about a man, and I find it hard, which most people in my generation would. And but it's easy to get hung on that one. Anyway, they took my word for it. So I'm now waiting for probation. To talk to a probation officer. So I've got in touch with a local group here, the police thing about hate speech, and this guy set up a group on the internet. So I got in touch with them, laying out what's happened, see if they can come back with anything. And you know, but the worst part of it is one. Well, not even being found guilty. Yeah, but that made me angry. That made me angry. And that reminds me of Jorge's lawyer try to wind me up and try to get me to be angry, you know, which I wasn't. I was quite assertive and quite firm, but I wasn't. I didn't show any anger or any temper. And because what is that nowadays? How do you measure that nowadays, you know? If you make, what are they called, snowflakes? If you upset a snowflake by using the wrong pronoun or adjective or whatever, that's it. You're up in the charge. George Orwell, 1984. I couldn't read that book because it was too disturbing. I couldn't watch a film on it with John Hurt in it in the 80s because it was too disturbing. And here it is happening. I'm being charged with this. And then transpires that, well, probably mainly because it was a taxi officer. The taxi licensing people get in touch with me. They want to talk to me to see if I'm a fit and proper person to be a licensed taxi driver. Couldn't make it up. Now, what's happening here? I don't know what kind of fine they're going to put on me, if at all. They're just going to put on probation, whatever. And I don't know if they're going to take my job away from me. Absolutely unbelievable. I live on a basic pension. I work seriously part-time just to finance the car and keep the car on the road because I've got a bad back and I've limited mobility, and I need to get about to AA meetings and such things for my health and hopefully for somebody else's health as well, and carry the message. This is absolutely astounding and shocking how this is all blown out of completely blown out of proportion. And the effect that that's had on me has been quite traumatic. Well, no, traumatic. Well, yeah, just not nice at all. Not sleeping well at all because of this shakedown, lockdown, whatever. And which doesn't particularly bother me. And then, interestingly enough, I bump into this wee guy who will remain anonymous, who I tried to help with the programme many years ago, and he got it. Well, it's fine, off and running. Didn't do his step 10 stuff regularly, so and that's usual. That's usual. Most of them don't do the step 10s regularly, which is a mistake, big mistake, one that I almost made. And sometime later, maybe a year or so later or whatever, I found out he was back on the drink again and he was in a mess and all of that stuff. And he's now on and off the booze, and some of it's quite traumatic, his relapses, you know. And I met him recently in town. Hadn't seen him for a long time. And he's kind of gaga, you know. He's like a kid, like an excitable kid who doesn't listen, just wants to see what we've got. And then you try to say something. And interestingly enough, he said the other day when I pointed certain things out to him, I was being constructively critical, which isn't too difficult with Alcoholics Anonymous. The accent being on the constructively. And I said, John, I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about that kind of stuff and this kind of stuff. And, laying down the rules of what he wants to talk about. I said, well, Alan, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, you have to listen to what they're saying as well. And then he goes off on one and, off he goes. And I found that quite disturbing and it quite affected me. And he sent me an email asking for my address because he wanted to redirect the eBay stuff. He lives on a boat, about. He lives on a boat. An old ramshackle barge thing. And he wanted me to pick up this mail from eBay. I've not responded to him because I couldn't be bothered. And I'm not feeling guilty about it. I might respond to him. He might phone me and ask whatever, but there's no way I'm giving him my address. That's the first time ever I've kind of been in a position like that with a fellow alcoholic. And the poor lad's got other problems. And I know his history, I know his life story as such, from his point of view. And his history with his father and stuff like that, and the family, and not too good. When was married with a couple of kids who are now teenagers. They were only youngsters when I first got involved with them. And it's really quite pitiful. And he's convinced that he's okay. This is the scary part. He's convinced that he's okay. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up in some sort of tragedy. And one that I'm not going to be a part of. I'm not going to be giving him my address or anything like that. And that's kind of, why am I saying this? I'm saying this just to get talking, just to get back into the swing of things, because it's been a while since I've done this. And caught up with all this stuff that's hanging over me. And of course, the situation with the council, they were having a meeting with two supposedly independent people to decide whether they're going to allow me a license or not, or going to revoke my license. I've got a funny feeling that's not going to happen. I've got a few of my regular customers and one alcoholic who I helped years ago and is still sober. And he wrote quite a powerful recommendation. What's the word for it? To write somebody to say that they're a decent bloke, decent person. And a couple of my customers, professional people, wrote to them as well. Can't remember the word for it. It's getting old. A recommendation. It's not a recommendation. It's a personal statement or whatever. But it's very nice of them. And Neil, the alcoholic guy I helped years ago. God, how long ago was that? God, it's been knocking on 10 years anyway. He wrote a very nice letter. And that was nice. Quite emotional, that one. Because I've never looked at myself from that point of view. And most people don't say anything. Most of them disappear. You take them through the program. I've taken many people through this program. Many people. And so much so you wouldn't believe it. And I said, yeah, he's just making it up. He's a nutter. But anyway. To prove to you that I'm not a nutter. When the man took me through the program, I had a remarkable experience in step 4. Couldn't put a label on it because I didn't know what it was. Didn't know how to explain it. It transpires it was a spiritual experience. And wow. And I spent the best part of 18 months struggling in AA, struggling badly. And tried a few of those so-called sponsor people that I had to find for myself. One was a complete nutter who thought he was okay. And came across as being okay. in the rooms. And the other was a professional guy, Trevor, from Potter's Bar. He was all right, and he meant well, but he didn't have a clue. He showed me step 4, writing all these columns with sub-columns and that sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there nodding my head, because he doesn't realise, and I don't realise, that sitting in front of him is a 40-year-old man with the mind of a 10-year-old child. And he said, you got that? And I'm doing that because I'm too frightened to do that in case he just said, I will forget it. You know, the kind of childlike fears. Maybe even not childlike. But weighing it all up, he was dangerous. But he genuinely meant well, and he had some sort of forum to I suppose to the other guy who didn't have a clue about the programme enough. I just asked him because he was funny Irish bloke. And I wanted a pal. That's another interesting thing. I wanted a pal. I wanted to fit in. Whereas if I could get him as a pal, then everybody else would become my pal. You know, everybody who laughed at him when he was sharing, because he was always cracking funnies and people were laughing. Don't know whether it's neurotic laughter or what. Didn't know nothing. I didn't know nothing. The last person to find a sponsor would be me. Yeah. Then eventually I found this man. Went to this meeting. No business being at this meeting. And it was down the road locally. I've lived in this area ever since, which is kind of interesting. And I went and I met this soft-spoken Irishman. And he always talked to the most famous man who ever lived. When I worked out, he was talking about Jesus Christ. No real argument with that. Pretty decent bloke, Jesus. Yeah. And I liked listening to him. Very soft-spoken, very measured in what he was saying. But I didn't really hear what he was saying. You know, and you don't know a 10-year-old. But it was attractive. You know, there's lots of people in AA can be attracted by the wrong people. Lots of people like me, adult child, who can be attracted by the wrong people. Like the Irish, the first Irish bloke who was the gift of the gab and all that jazz, you know. Hey, yeah, he'll be a good pal to have. No, he wasn't. And so I asked him if he'd sponsor me, and he said no. No, fuck. Excuse my language, but that was it. Dear God, if you knew how much it took for me asking me and you're just saying no. But within the millisecond, he turned around and said, but what I will do is I'll take you through the programme as it is in the book. Well, that was interesting. I wasn't sure what book he was talking about, whether it was a big book or the 12 and 12. Because in my life at that time, my AA life at that time, there was 2 books. There was the big book, which was talking about the programme. And there was a 12 and 12, which was talking about steps. They were different things. That was the impression I was given, or I took. I interpreted it that way. Really dangerous stuff. Because most people in my position would have walked away. Most people do walk away and don't come back. But God knows what happens to them. God knows what happens. And this is serious business. Serious business. And as I've come to appreciate over the past 27 years. Because that's what it's been. 27 years. Never had a drink since my first meeting, which is kind of interesting. Most people, anyway, doesn't matter. I had no mental defence against the first drink, but here I am. I've been through the programme with this man, and he told me I'd have to study the book, which shattered me. How can you tell a 10-year-old child they've got to study a book? You know, it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. And I just, I was fucking floored. I phoned a few people, because I met a few sober people from the same school as this man, And I phoned them up and saying, da. So I don't know if they got in touch with him and whatever and shared my problem, my dilemma. God, it's depressing. Well, it's not. That part's depressing, but the rest of it is really so positive. Because I went up to the man's house and he asked me a question. He says, when you want to stop, can you? I don't know. When you stop, can you control the amount you drink? Guarantee when you finish? No. Page, chapter 4, isn't it? I just remember the page it was on as well. But anyway, chapter 4. Begin the chapter 4, first paragraph, chapter 4. And that's it. So I'm powerless? Yeah. So you need a power? Yeah. That was the easiest question to answer. Yeah, obviously. And I said, well, the people who wrote the book found a power. Do you want to follow their path? The clear-cut, precise instructions in the book. My first question, I believe, was, how long will it take? Which is probably typical of an alcoholic. I would say typical of an alcoholic. Want to find out how long it's going to take. So, he says it will take 2 days to take steps 4 to 9, according to the book, the clear-cut, precise instructions. And then you will practice 10 and 11 on a daily basis. He didn't go into it in too much depth. And fine. So I sat down right there and then. I was at his house and I sat down and he showed me how to lay out the step 4. A4 page, draw a margin down the left hand side, the top of it. I resent. On the right hand side, draw a margin again, maybe about 2 inches. So you've got a left hand column about 1 inch, a right hand column about 2 inches, and you've got a centre column and the line across the top. So in the top left hand box it's I resent, in the middle box it's the cause, and on the right hand box is affects my. When he showed me it all, chapter 5, there's all there. He says, now we do the columns one at a time, we don't do them across. This is the most important part of this step 4, not doing it across the way. He says, because if you can do it across the way, by the time you're halfway down, you'll come across a relative of your mum or whatever, or sister or whatever, and that'll change what you wrote about your mum, and then you'll end up editing this, and then you'll end up editing that. Nope. Minute. I'm out of here. There's one thing you don't need to be doing is getting frustrated, because it's the worst thing for an adult child is to get frustrated, because you have a tantrum. Yeah, they have tantrums. 40 years of age having a tantrum. And that stopped that. And I'd done it. And I was writing down, these were the people that I resented. Then there was institutions that I resented, and which are a given, really. Most people, the institutions I resented, most people did. And the principles, I didn't know what a principle was. I went to a grammar school. So I asked the man, because I trusted him. I didn't feel embarrassed. I trusted him. That was good. I said, well, what does principle mean? He said, rules in life. Yeah. Very gentle, very soft spoken. Just rules in life, John, that you don't like. You know, like I don't like taxing my car. I don't like paying train fares. I get caught skipping my fare on a train once. Embarrassing. And MOT for my car. Why do I need it? I know it's fine. Nothing wrong with my car. It's all right. And insuring it. Well, I'm not going to be in an accident. You know, things like that. These principles, these rules in life that most people had to adhere to, but I didn't like them. So I resented them. And that was it, you know, that's what I wrote down. My mother, my sisters, my father. My father died when I was 10 years of age, and he probably died drunk or because of his drinking. And It was a complete mess, shambles. And my mother had 5 kids. 2 years later, she had another two to some character. God knows. Totally irresponsible. No blame, just finding out who's responsible for what, getting things in their correct place. Yeah, you're responsible for that, John, but they're responsible. No. Oh, right. Hey, and that is good, by the way. That's amazing to get that cleared up. So I'm not responsible. No, no. Good. I just recommend you do it. Don't think about it, just do it. So I write down all the names, and I write down all the causes, and then I write down the parts of me affected. Chapter 5 in the book. What part was it? My personal relations? Was it sexual relations? Was it financial? Stuff like that. Very simple. Very simple. I can only remember 3 things in that. What part of me was affected? My personal relations, my financial relations, my sexual relations, for whatever that was. I might have thrown another one in there just to keep the score even or whatever. Doesn't really matter. As long as you do it. Because it all reveals itself at the end when you sum it up. So I've got all these hydrogen, then the causes, and then the parts affected. And you do the same with the principles. And what was the other? I always forget this. The principles in life, the rules in life, and institutions. You do the same with them. My step 4 was pretty long. There was a lot of names in it of people. So I don't think there's times when I've said to people, they're like, okay, just we'll do the names of the people that you resent, and we'll do a couple of the others, but we won't go into the great depths about it. And it'll show up. It'll show up anyway. It always does. And or if they want to go the whole way, then let them go the whole way. But they're at my house. In the main, they're at my house. And many a time I've sat with people in my house, guiding them through this stuff. Wow. Wow, what a bunch. And some fascinating experiences, conversations. But anyway, so here I have all these people that I resent and the causes and the parts of me affected. And I have to look at it and then I have to say, right, okay, we've made this and we've got all these people that we, right, okay. We found out their part in it and how much they've harmed us and what they're responsible for. And I've discussed it with a man and he's cut through the rubbish, the rationalisation and justification. No, John, no, John, no. You just look for excuses, yeah, mate. Just look at it that way. This is how you see it at this moment in time. What part of you is affected? Now, setting aside the wrongs of others, we resolutely look for our part. Where had we been at fault? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. Who would be harmed, and it's all there in chapter 5. You'll see it all again, chapter 5. And then you start to realise things. Whoa. So I wasn't responsible for that. No. I wasn't responsible for the way my mother abused me. She had been given Valium for her nerves and made her a drug addict, which is now infamous. But there we were living with this woman who was under the influence of this drug. And we didn't know. She didn't know either. Once again, it's not about blame. It's about who's responsible for what. You can go to the medical people and find out who's responsible for my mother getting put on these drugs and all of that stuff. But this is the fascinating thing about it. It's not about blame. It's accurately defining who's responsible for what. So being brought up by my mother was a nightmare. When every time I stepped out of line, she reminded me of my father. So she was going to beat that out of me until I was learning to stand up for myself. Then I became a wee monster. And horrible, horrible stuff. Poverty. Bedwetters. Bedwetters. I don't know how many of my sisters were bedwetters. I wasn't, and my younger sister directly, Mary, wasn't. So we shared a bed with my mother. So we had a dry bed. Never experienced a wet bed. The rest of them, wet beds. Terrible for them, really terrible. Waking up in the middle of the night, hearing the wee voice from the back bedroom. Ma, she's wet the bed again. You know, and no way of drying things. Didn't have dryers. Didn't have dryers. You know, and the laundrette man down in the local town, he stopped doing it because of the smell and the stink and the bed, the clothing was falling. The mattress was rotting. It was literally rotting. The house stank, but we just didn't notice it. We didn't notice it. Just get used to it. Anybody walking into the house, Jesus, and a shocking way to live. I suffered perhaps more than others due to lack of clothing and holes in my shoes and terrible, terrible, terrible. Shame. Shame. I only wanted to be a footballer. Which was handy because the only pair of shoes I had at one time was a pair of football boots. So I'd run about in these football boots as I was playing football, you know. That kind of covered it. Oh, God, it fucking breaks my heart, so it does. Breaks my heart. Anyway, don't get drawn into this, John. So, right, so you managed to work out who's responsible for what. Yeah, what's your part, what's their part. Yeah, you have. I can't remember the word. But anyway, that's what you learn. What's your stuff and what's their stuff. And that's remarkable. And that brings us up to kind of page 76. Right, so we've done all this, right, okay, there's some of the stuff we won't let go of because there are some resentments that you're quite entitled to have, quite justifiable. And it's a sad, sad story of a wee woman. She got recommended to me from a treatment centre. Yeah, that's how high flying I was. Yeah, the guy who ran a treatment centre gave him my number. And when she came up and we were talking about stuff step forward, getting her through, and we were discussing who's responsible for what and whatever else, you know. And she started crying. I said, why are you crying? She said, well, my last sponsor, fucking monsters, in the main, not recommended at all. AA doesn't recommend them either. That's the main point. So my last sponsor told me that because I resented my father who sexually abused me, because I resented him, I'd have to go and make amends to him. So that's complete and utter trash. And she burst into tears. I thought, God, what have you done here? So I've got enough problems with my mother and stuff like that. You know, I'm fucking no one problem with you. And she said, why are you crying? I'm crying because I'm relieved and I'm happy. Because I thought I'd have to go and make amends to him. That's why I relapsed. The sponsor said she'd have to relapse. She'd have to make amends to her abuser. And she relapsed. How many times has that happened over the years, the decades? How many times? I ask you. Thousands upon thousands of times people have walked away in step 4 because some moron has told them they'd have to make amends to everybody that they had a resentment against. Totally wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. And that blew me away. That was a big lesson. Wow. So these people are telling them they have to make amends to people even though they're not responsible. Yes. Wow. That's been a great help. Been a great help. Over the years, over the decades, now decades, third decade. Wow, wait a minute. Never thought it'd end up here. So, right, that's it. Page 76. Like page 76. So there you go. We're now step 6. Are we willing to go? No. Okay, fine. And if you're not, you've got step 7 prayer. It's there, paragraph. If you've got any hang-ups with any of these, any doubts about whether you make amends to these people or not, you just say this little prayer. And you've completed step 7. So it can be on a daily basis. Yeah. We then go on to step 8 and 9. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. Look. I don't say you do anything except look. There's no action required as such. Right, so we've discovered all. Let's look at. We've discovered all this. We've discovered all these people that we've harmed and all that stuff. Blah blah blah. Faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. Step 8, made a list of people we had harmed. Yep. We done it when we took inventory. I've never heard that said, except me. I've never heard that said. They believe that they have to do some in step 8. When we've already got the list. So we go out and we make direct amends wherever possible. And however long that takes. I talked to one wee guy, said, yeah, I'm on my step 9. I said, yeah, I'm going to make amends to people, da da da. I said, when are you going to be finished that? Oh, I don't know. When are you going to be doing step 10? I don't know. When I finish with step 9. Just read the book, pal. You know. Once we're doing that, we go on, we carry on. Step 10. That brings us to step 10. We're now taking step 4. We took a moral inventory looking for the truth. We're now taking a personal inventory diary of our recovery on a daily basis. The man showed me just lay it out the way you laid out in step 4. It's pretty neat, pretty effective. And right, okay, step 10. And gratitude. That was the biggest part of it for me, doing the gratitude at the end of the night. I'm grateful for everything daily. I'm grateful for waking up. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family's health. I'm grateful for all the basic fundamental things in the day, reinforcing them on every day, a daily basis. And then I'm now grateful for such and such. At first, I didn't be bothered. Why bother? Typical adult child. And of course, I had such a massive effect with the step 4. I thought, that's it, I've cracked it. And I was talking to the man once, and I was supposed to phone him on a nightly basis just to report in. And I'm not sure if he said to get used to it, till it becomes intuitive. We're just going to do this, Jonathan. I don't remember him actually saying that. So I didn't take it particularly seriously. And then I phoned him once and I said, well, what about your step 10? I said, I'm too busy to do that, Bob. I'm too busy. I said, well, John, I hear what you're saying. But you were never too busy to go drinking, were you? Bang! That was that. It was the excuse blown out of the water. And that's when I picked up on my step 10. And I've got it up there in the folder from 1990 whatever. Yeah, 1990 whatever. When did I start doing these steps? 96 or so. Something like that. No, it wasn't as much as that. 90. I stopped drinking in 93. Yeah. So it'd been 94, maybe 95. And I've got them all up there, and then I transferred to my telephone, the tape recorder thing on that, which is really handy. And you've got iCloud, so it's always saved to iCloud, so you'll never lose it. So I could lose the notes or a fire, something dramatic like that. So this will go to iCloud, and yeah, so it's good. Good idea. Good idea. And that's step 10, basically. Yeah. Yeah, how do I do step 10? Just lay it out the same way as you laid out in step 4. It's the most economical way, which it is, except now with this voice recorder thing. Step 11. Search through prayer and meditation to improve conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us, no big deal. Some people make a huge thing out of it. It's no big deal. It's just a wee prayer, that kind of covers things. And when you think about it, step 4 and 5, the prayer in step 4 and 5, same kind of thing. And you're doing this regularly until it becomes intuitive, like riding a bike, like driving your car and doing things without thinking about it. I have to do it, but I don't need to think about it anymore. It becomes intuitive. As it says in the promises, we will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle us. Wow. All of that leads to step 12. As a result of these steps, what is it? I can't even remember. But anyway, you've got the book, so there's no problem. Chapter 5 stuff and all that. And it's all there, clear cut precise instructions. Go and read it and you'll say, yeah, you said that. Yeah, sure he said. Yeah, you maybe missed that out, but that's okay. Because I've got you reading the book. Because it's not me, it's them. This bunch of ex-drunks who'd have screwed up a 2-car funeral, who'd have argued where to put a full stop. They created this book within a year. As the man said to me, having said that, try to tell me there's no God. Pretty profound statement. Not particularly interested in the God of the Bible. I'm certainly not interested in bringing Muhammad and his bloodthirsty mob. The Bible mob went, well, they were quite a distant being, but they were up to all sorts of ungodly things. So, but I certainly have a higher power. And still wonder what it's all about. Why do so many people die? Why do so many people starve to death? Why do so many people killed in wars and all that disgraceful, disgusting stuff? Starve to death. Wow. So no, I'm not too interested in the gods of the Bible and the Quran and all that stuff, especially the Quran. But I wouldn't want to put anybody off with my biased interpretation. So, having had the spiritual awakening, step 12, as the result of these steps, we practice these principles in all our affairs and try to help other alcoholics who are still suffering alcohol. Wow. I said done. You're done. So if you've done okay with your steps 4 and 5 and you've been thorough enough with that, then that should be okay. And then if you practice 10 and 11 until it becomes intuitive, which it will become intuitive, then the sooner you get that done, then the sooner you'll be able to go and the sooner you will reach step 12. And you will know you've reached step 12. Then you can go and help others. Pity that's not what happens. All sorts of nutters in those rooms promoting themselves as so-called sponsors and this, that, and the next thing. I remember the man said something to me when I first got this stuff. So I went back to the rooms and I told everybody about it. And they laughed at me, criticised me, and called me names. I remember one guy called me a step Nazi, and I thought, nah, big deal. And then when I told the man, he said, well, that's not a very spiritual thing to say, is it? What program is he practicing when he talks that way, John? Because I'd been brought up in such a way about the Holocaust and all that, so it was just entertainment, or a bit of drama or whatever. And my mother was too busy to point anything out to us still. She was in cloud cuckoo land. She was in La La Land, and just astonishing, just how impressionable I was for the bad, for the negative. on how many people are upset with my, you know, I could have been a good footballer, I know that. A few people got behind me and tried to help me, and then I thought I was too big for my boots, and they just walked away from me and just shook their head, and it's so sad, so sad. And there's a couple of those people I'm really grateful to them, and I did upset them, and I would give them the opportunity, which most likely dead, but I'm so grateful to them. And wow. Oh, I could get caught up in a lot of reflection here, But that is basically it. If you're taking somebody through this program, you make sure you do that. And everything I've said to you, told you, it's in the book. I mean, the first 3 chapters are to help you to identify, if you need to identify that you're an alcoholic. And they sum it all right away in chapter 4. When you want to stop, can you? No. When you start, can you control the amount you drink? No. You're an alcoholic, pal. And if so, you'll need this program. So you want to launch out in the course of vigorous action? Vigorous action. If it's anything but vigorous action, they'll just get bored and just stuff it. Yeah, minute. Taking too long, like this big book study. That's monstrous. Absolutely monstrous. Oh, they're still promoting it. They're still promoting it. And interestingly enough, the man said to me, he said, John, if you talk this program in those rooms, you will drink coffee on your own. And never a truer word has been said. But what he didn't say was that will also include me. Oh, well, because I've taken so many people through this program that you eventually get a reputation, good or bad. I know it's good because I know that I stick to the rules, the clear cut precise instructions, So I don't need the support in these rooms. In fact, there's no chance that I'm going to get it. On the odd occasion, somebody, wee woman come up to me once and says, and I remember saying that somebody cross-shared on me, or cross-shared on, somebody criticised me, and I defended myself. I reserved the right to do that, and I defended myself and caused a wee bit of furore. And this young woman came up to me afterwards and said, I heard what you said. Wow, that was it. She heard what I said. That's all that matters. It's happened a few times. I've taken many people through this program, so many people have heard me. And life is difficult. And with this court case thing and all that, but I'm not letting it get on top of me. The council have had their meeting and to decide whether I'm a fit and proper person. They've done that. Was it last week? They still don't think, well, maybe we should get back to them because he'll be a bit concerned about what he. No. There's a wee guy who's a manager there who doesn't like me because I continually, constructively criticise what they're doing. And like all human beings, they do not like it, especially alcoholics. They don't see constructive criticism. All they see is negative criticism. They don't see it being constructive. To be constructively critical. What's the opposite of being judgmental? The man said a few good things to me. They're now coming back to me. What's the opposite of being judgmental? I don't know. To be constructively critical. Wow. That's right. I got it right away. To be constructively critical. But don't be fooled. Because even if you're being constructively critical in an AA room, the children will take it the wrong way. Because that's all you're dealing with is a group of adult children. And sometimes it can get quite nasty, spiteful. I actually get banned from 2 AA meetings. 2. So you can't do that. You can't do that. You've got to be able to get together in your group, in your committee or whatever, and go to the errant member and have a little chat with them about maybe like wee Alan, who I described initially when we started this talk about how badly he's gone. Maybe if somebody turn him aside, a couple of people, 2 or 3 people from my committee with love in their heart, being constructively critical, may have helped. I've never seen an example of it. And I've done a serious number of meetings. We're talking, oh, God only knows. Tapered off over the past few years, but there was a time when I was right bang in there. And the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. How dramatic can I get? Very serious business, and people die. Most people who come to Alcoholics Anonymous don't get it because it's not there. It's not there. Bill W. say, right, get them in a meeting, right, identify the problem. 12-step them and identify the problem. Before you even take them to a meeting, they know that they're powerless. Right, so let's go to the meeting. Now you're powerless. You're going to introduce you to a power. And hopefully the meetings run properly. And the newcomer goes there and hears people talking and quoting a book. Well, he quoted that book there. Well, he quoted the book. All right. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen at all. Just shocking. I was at a meeting the other week, last week, and I walked out. You couldn't believe it. It was just complete and utter, I don't know. Group therapy, I suppose they call it, don't they? Group therapy that kills the message, that's for sure. Kills the message. Just unbelievable. We should all be talking from the same hymn sheet. We should all be recognising it in each other when we're sharing. Like, somebody says, anything goes. I remember, this was years ago, when I was a wee bit younger and fitter, and I said, anything goes. So anything goes. Well, that doesn't work, does it? Well, just imagine all the drivers out there. If they treated the highway code with the attitude of anything goes, there'd be pure carnage out there, would there not? That's why we have a highway code. Very profound little bit, in actual fact, and very simple. Very simple. A beautiful example of the highway code. We've got our own highway code. It's the 12 steps. Anything does not go. And if I get drawn into that, I'll be here for another hour. So, I hope somebody gets something from this. This is me just kind of getting myself back into it again. And pardon the beginning when I was looking for a light switch and stuff like that, but hopefully you stayed on, and maybe you might have got something from it. Maybe you realise this guy knows what he's talking. It's not difficult, but I'm pretty sure that everything I've said you will find it reflected in the first 5 chapters of that book. In fact, and this is just come back to me. We've got 12 steps, 12 statements of fact, based on the experience of the people who wrote the book. And every step begs a question. And every question is answered in the first 130 pages of that book. That's how simple it is. Have a good life.